The Whispering Shadows Part 1. The Unsettling Beginning. Amara had just moved into an old apartment building, a place that seemed perfect for a fresh start. The walls creaked with the building's age, and there was a peculiar smell that lingered in the hallways. But Amara ignored the signs. It was cheap and in a quiet neighborhood. Perfect, she said. It wasn't until the third night that things started to change. At exactly 3 a.m., as Amara lay in bed trying to drift to sleep, she began hearing whispers. They were faint at first, barely audible over the hum of a fan. But as the minutes passed, the whispers grew louder and clearer. They weren't just sounds in the ear. They were calling her name. Amara. Amara. Her heart skipped a beat. She dismissed it as the wind or maybe the building settling. But the whispers continued, relentless, coming from somewhere just outside her room. She sat up in her bed, the blanket still clutched around her body. It's just my mind, she whispered to herself, trying to convince herself to ignore it. But the whispering grew louder. The voices overlapped, sounding like multiple people whispering at once. Amara, look in the mirror. Her breath caught in her throat. Slowly, she turned her head, her eyes darting to the large mirror in the corner of her room. It was old and cracked, the edges worn out with age, but it had a strange lure. For a moment, she hesitated. Something felt wrong, like an invisible hand was pushing her towards it. She stood up and walked toward the mirror, almost in a trance. As she touched the cold surface, she noticed something chilling. Her reflection did not move. The figure in the mirror stayed completely still while she continued to move her hand. A wave of nausea washed over her. Don't turn round, came a deep, distorted whisper from behind her. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest as she spun around, expecting something to be behind her, but the room was empty. There was no one there, only the silence of the night, broken by the ticking of the old wall clock. Amara couldn't shake the feeling. Something was terribly wrong. Part 2. The Shadow's Warning. The next day, she couldn't focus. The whispers had continued for 2 more nights and they were becoming more frequent and insistent. At 3 a.m. sharp, she would hear them again. They no longer just whispered a name. They begged her to look deeper into the mirror, to open the mirror as if something or someone was trapped inside. She had to know. Amara was determined to get answers. The following night, she decided to confront the mirror head-on. She sat in front of it, staring at her reflection, trying to make sense of the strange occurrences. The whisper had now become commands. Commands she couldn't ignore. Amara, look into the mirror. She stared deeper, almost hypnotized by the dark glass. But then, something even stranger happened. Her reflection moved on its own. It smiled at her, but Amara's real self stood motionless, paralyzed in fear. Her reflection slowly began to step forward, as if it were coming out of the mirror itself. Amara stumbled backward, a scream caught in her throat. Her heart raced. She reached for the cloth she had placed over the mirror earlier to block it out. But when she touched it, the cloth fell to the ground. The mirror was completely uncovered. Her reflection was still there grinning, but she couldn't move. It was as though the reflection was alive, more real than her own self. She ran out of her room in panic, locking the door behind her. Part 3. The Neighbor's Warning. The next morning, Amara couldn't shake the feeling of dread that clung to her. She needed answers. Desperate, she went to her elderly neighbor, Mama Kadi, who lived across the hall. Mama Kadi have been living in the building for decades, and Amara hoped that she could provide some insights. Amara knocked on the door and was greeted by an elderly woman who looked at her with knowing eyes. "You live in apartment 7, yes?" Mama Kadi asked. Amara nodded hesitant. "You shouldn't be in there," Mama Kadi said, her voice low and trembling. "The last tenant who lived there, she disappeared. No one ever found her." Amara frowned, unsure if she had heard correctly. "What do you mean disappeared?" she asked. Mama Kadi glanced over her shoulder nervously before continuing. "They never found her body. The only thing left was a reflection in the mirror, just like yours, still there, waiting to take someone else's place." Amara's stomach twisted. She had to get out of this building, but she couldn't leave. She had nowhere else to go, and she was too terrified to face whatever had taken residence in that mirror. Part 4. The final twist. That night, Amara locked all the doors in her apartment and placed the cloth over the mirror once again. She was done. She was not going to fall for whatever trick the whisper had played on her before. She just needed to sleep. As the night wore on, she tried to ignore the whispers that started again at 3 a.m., growing louder as they called her name. But this time, she didn't listen. She shut her eyes, willing herself to sleep. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. The cloth had been pulled off the mirror. Amara shut up in bed, her heart thundering in her chest. She slowly turned her head towards the mirror. There it was, a reflection, still there, but this time it was smiling at her. "Now it's your turn," the voice from the mirror whispered. Amara screamed, but it was too late. Her reflection stepped forward, crossing the boundary between the mirror and reality. Her reflection grabbed her by the shoulder, pulling her towards the glass. Amara tried to scream, but the voice was already inside her mind. "You should have listened." The next morning, a neighbor found the door to the apartment 7 wide open. The apartment was empty, except for an old cracked mirror. The reflection in the mirror, however, was still there, smiling. No one ever saw Amara again. This is the full story of The Whispering Shadow, a chilling tale of a haunted mirror and the dark forces that reside within it. The question still remains: will you ever be brave enough to look into your own reflection after hearing the whispers? Let me know what you think in the comment section. And remember, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and comment for more stories. Bye!